The Fall and the Mask. The Golden Cage. The morning sun painted the royal palace in shades of gold and amber. Lady Seraphina Ashford stood at her window, watching the capital city of Valdoria wake below. Her heart should have been full of joy. Today, Crown Prince Adrian would announce their engagement to the entire kingdom. She had loved Adrian since they were children. He was kind, brave, and everything a future king should be. For 3 years, they had been inseparable. Everyone at court knew they would marry. It was destiny. "My lady, your dress is ready," her maid called softly. Sarah turned from the window, smoothing her silk nightgown. The engagement dress hanging in her room was beautiful, white with silver embroidery that caught the light like stars. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, but something felt wrong. Adrian had been distant for weeks. He avoided her eyes. His smiles seemed forced. When she asked what troubled him, he said only, "Court matters, my love. Nothing you need to worry about." She trusted him. That was her first mistake. The announcement that shattered everything. The throne room was packed with nobles from across the kingdom. Sarah stood among them, her hands trembling with excitement. King Theodore sat on his throne, looking tired and old. Beside him stood Adrian, dressed in royal blue and gold. He looked handsome but pale. "My beloved subjects," the king's voice boomed across the hall. "Today, we celebrate a union that will strengthen our kingdom. My son, Crown Prince Adrian, will marry." Sarah's heart soared. This was it. Her moment. He will marry Lady Vivian Blackthorne of House Blackthorne. The world stopped. Sarah felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. Around her, nobles gasped and whispered. Vivian Blackthorne stepped forward, beautiful, cold, and smiling like a cat with cream. This couldn't be real. This had to be a nightmare. Sarah's eyes found Adrian's across the crowded room. For one brief moment, their gazes met. She saw something in his eyes. Pain, guilt, maybe even regret. But then he looked away and took Vivian's hand. The applause was deafening. Sarah barely heard it over the roaring in her ears. She fled. Tears blurred her vision as she ran through the palace corridors. Servants jumped out of her way. She didn't care. She needed air. She needed to understand. The truth hidden in shadows. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Her mind spun with questions. Why would Adrian betray her? What had changed? She needed answers. She wrapped herself in a dark cloak and moved through the palace like a ghost. She knew these halls better than anyone. She had grown up here, playing hide and seek with Adrian in these very corridors. Voices drifted from the rose garden. Sarah recognized them instantly, Adrian and Vivian. She pressed herself against the stone wall, hidden by shadows and rose bushes. "You played your part perfectly." Vivian's voice was smooth and satisfied. "The little fool actually believed you loved her." "I did what you demanded." Adrian's voice was cold, empty. "My sister is safe. That was our agreement." Sarah's blood turned to ice. Sister? Adrian's younger sister, Princess Elena, had been away at a seaside estate for months. What did Vivian have to do with her? "Your sister remains safe as long as you obey," Vivian continued. "Duke Malric has been very clear about that. Marry me, give me access to the throne, and little Elena lives. But if you betray us, if you tell anyone the truth—" "I understand." Adrian cut her off, his voice breaking. "Just promise me you won't hurt Seraphina. She's innocent in all this." Vivian laughed. A cold, cruel sound. "Oh, my dear prince, Lady Seraphina knows too much. She's close to you. She asks questions. She's a liability." "No." Adrian's voice rose in panic. "You said if I agreed to marry you. I said your sister would live. I said nothing about your former lover." Vivian's voice dropped to a whisper, but Sarah heard every word. "During tomorrow's royal hunt, there will be an accident. Lady Ashford's horse will spook near the cliffs of Serpent's Gorge. It will be tragic. The kingdom will mourn, but you will move on." Sarah couldn't breathe. They were going to kill her. And Adrian, he hadn't betrayed her out of cruelty. He was being blackmailed. His sister was in danger. But that didn't change the fact that he had chosen. He chose Elena over her. He chose silence over trust. He never even gave her a chance to help. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. Death comes swiftly. The royal hunt began at dawn. Sarah rode mechanically, her mind racing. She could run. She could tell the king. But if she did, would they kill Elena? Would they kill Adrian? Or she could play their game. Let them think they'd won. And then, she hadn't decided yet when her horse suddenly reared. The animal's eyes rolled white with terror. Someone had shot it with a needle. She saw the dart buried in its neck. The horse bolted toward the cliff edge. Sarah pulled desperately on the reins. But the animal was mad with fear. Behind her, she heard Vivian's voice call out, "Someone help her. The horse is spooked." But no one moved fast enough. Or maybe they were ordered not to. The cliff edge rushed toward her. Sarah made a split-second decision. She kicked free of the stirrups and jumped. Better to choose her own fall than let them push her. The world became a blur of sky and stone. The serpent's gorge opened beneath her like a hungry mouth. Sharp rocks waited below. Then darkness swallowed everything. Survival against all odds. Sarah woke to firelight and pain. Every inch of her body screamed in agony. She was lying on a rough cot in a small cave. Herbs hung drying from the ceiling. The air smelled of medicine and smoke. "Don't move," a woman's voice said. "You broke 3 ribs, your left arm, and half the bones in your feet. You're lucky to be alive." Sarah turned her head slowly. An old woman sat by the fire, grinding herbs with a mortar and pestle. She had wild gray hair and sharp, knowing eyes. "Who?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm Mother Ilara. I live in these mountains, gathering herbs. I saw you fall into the gorge. Found you washed up on the riverbank downstream. You should be dead, girl. That fall kills everyone." "Maybe I am dead," Sarah whispered. The pain suggested otherwise. "You're not dead. But whoever pushed you off that cliff thinks you are. I heard the royal hunters searching. They found blood on the rocks, scraps of your dress. They declared you dead within an hour. Didn't even search the river." Sarah closed her eyes. Good. Let them think she was dead. Let Adrian mourn. Let Vivian celebrate. She would use this death. She would become a ghost. And ghosts could do things the living never could. "How long until I can walk?" Sarah asked. Mother Ilara studied her with those sharp eyes. 3 months, maybe 4. But you'll never be the same girl who fell off that cliff. That girl died. The question is, who will you become? Sarah stared at the cave ceiling, feeling something cold and hard form in her chest where her heart used to be. "Someone they'll never see coming," she whispered. The birth of something new. 3 months passed in that mountain cave. Sarah learned to walk again, though she would always have a slight limp in her right leg. The pain taught her patience. The isolation taught her to think. Mother Ilara was more than an herbalist. She had once been a lady-in-waiting at court until a scandal drove her into exile. She knew everything about court politics, about the noble families, about how power really worked in Valdoria. Power isn't about being loved, Ilara taught her while they ground medicinal herbs. It's about being necessary. Make yourself indispensable, and people will give you anything. Sarah absorbed every lesson. She read the books Ilara had saved from her court days, books on economics, military strategy, and the dark arts of manipulation. She learned which nobles were in debt, which families held grudges, which lords could be bought. She also learned about Duke Malric. He was the king's cousin, always hungry for more power. He controlled the northern territories and had his fingers in every corrupt scheme in the kingdom. If Vivian was working for him, then Adrian's sister was probably held somewhere in Malric's fortress. "I need to return to court," Sarah said one evening as winter snow began to fall. "But not as myself. I need a new identity." "Then you'll need a new face," Ilara said, pulling out a carved wooden box. Inside were dozens of masks, half-masks, full masks, ornate and simple. Sarah chose a silver half-mask that covered her eyes and nose but left her mouth visible. It was beautiful and unsettling at the same time. I'll be an advisor, Sarah decided. Someone with knowledge of foreign trade and economics. The kingdom is in debt. I remember hearing the king complain about it. I'll offer solutions no one else can provide. And your name? Alara asked. Sarah thought of the girl who had fallen off that cliff. That girl had been soft, trusting, weak. She was dead. What rose from her ashes was something else entirely. The veiled oracle, Sarah said, testing the words. I see the future of markets and money. I speak in riddles and truths. And I hide my face because my gift is too powerful. People fear looking upon one blessed by the gods. Alara smiled, a wolf's smile. Perfect, mysterious, useful, and just arrogant enough that the nobles will believe it. When will you go? Tomorrow, Sarah said, touching the silver mask. The spring council begins in a week. That's when all the nobles gather to discuss the kingdom's finances. I'll arrive as a mysterious foreign advisor with solutions to their problems. That night, Sarah looked at herself in Alara's small mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Her face was thinner, harder. Her eyes had lost their softness. The girl who loved Crown Prince Adrian was gone. In her place stood the veiled oracle. And she had a kingdom to save, right after she destroyed the people who tried to kill her. Return to the viper's nest. The capital city of Valdoria looked the same but felt different. Sarah rode through the gates in a black carriage with silver curtains. She wore a midnight blue gown and her silver mask. Her dark hair was pinned up with jeweled pins. She looked like a foreign mystery. The spring council was held in the grand hall. Nobles from every corner of the kingdom gathered to argue about taxes, trade routes, and the empty treasury. Sarah waited in the shadows until the perfect moment. King Theodore was arguing with his advisors about a failed trade agreement that had cost the kingdom thousands in gold. Your Majesty, Sarah's voice rang out across the hall. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times. Her voice was lower now, more controlled. Nothing like the soft, sweet voice of Lady Seraphina. The hall fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the masked woman standing at the entrance. Who dares interrupt the king's council? One of the advisors sputtered. Sarah walked forward slowly, her dress whispering against the marble floor. She could feel eyes on her. Curious, suspicious, intrigued. I am the veiled oracle, she said, her voice carrying effortlessly. I have traveled from the eastern kingdoms where I served as an economic advisor to 3 royal houses. I heard King Theodore's kingdom faces financial ruin. I have come to offer my services. We don't need help from masked strangers. Duke Malric's voice cut through the room. Sarah's heart clenched when she saw him, tall, silver-haired, with cold gray eyes. This was the man who orchestrated everything. The man who held Elena hostage. Don't you? Sarah turned to face him directly. Your northern territories produce iron, Duke Malric. But you sell it cheaply to foreign merchants who then sell it back to Valdoria at triple the price. You're bleeding your own kingdom dry out of short-sighted greed. Gasps echoed through the hall. No one spoke to Duke Malric that way. The Duke's face turned red. How dare you? She's right, a new voice said. Adrian stepped forward from where he had been standing beside his father. Sarah's breath caught. He looked older, tired. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. We've been questioning the northern trade agreements for months. Adrian's eyes met hers, or rather, met her mask. Sarah felt electricity shoot through her body. Did he recognize her? No. Impossible. She looked nothing like the girl he knew. What do you propose, Oracle? King Theodore asked, leaning forward with interest. Sarah launched into the economic strategy she had spent 3 months perfecting. She explained how to renegotiate trade routes, which noble houses were overtaxing their peasants, and how to create a banking system that would stabilize the kingdom's finances. She spoke for 20 minutes without pause. The entire council listened in stunned silence. When she finished, the king stood and began to applaud. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Oracle, I appoint you as my personal economic advisor, effective immediately. Your Majesty, We know nothing about this woman, Duke Malric protested. I know she just solved problems you couldn't solve in 5 years, the king snapped. She stays. That's final. Sarah bowed deeply, hiding her smile behind her mask. I live to serve the crown, your majesty. As she straightened, her eyes found Adrian again. He was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Curiosity, suspicion, or something else. Your Highness, she said, nodding to him. I look forward to working closely with the crown. Adrian bowed slightly. As do I, Oracle. Something tells me you'll bring interesting changes to our court. If only he knew how right he was. The game begins. That night, Sarah was given rooms in the palace, not far from where her old chambers used to be. She walked through the familiar halls wearing her mask, listening to the whispers that followed her. Who is she really? Did you see that mask? The king trusts her already. It's unprecedented.
Sarah smiled.
Mystery was power. As long as she kept people guessing, she controlled the narrative. She paused outside the portrait gallery. Inside hung paintings of all the noble families, including one of her own family, the Ashfords. Her father had died 2 years ago. She had no other family now. Sarah stopped in front of the newest painting, Crown Prince Adrian and Lady Vivian Blackthorne's official engagement portrait. They stood together stiffly, not touching. Vivian smiled brilliantly. Adrian looked like he was attending a funeral. They make a handsome couple, a voice said behind her. Sarah didn't turn. She had heard Adrian's footsteps approaching. She would know his walk anywhere. Handsome, yes, Sarah agreed, keeping her voice even. Happy? That's debatable. Adrian came to stand beside her, studying the portrait. You see a lot for someone who just arrived. I'm paid to see what others miss, Your Highness. They stood in silence for a moment. Sarah could feel the warmth radiating from his body. She had to clench her fists to keep from reaching for him. The Oracle, Adrian said slowly. Is that your true name? Is anyone in this court truly who they claim to be?
Sarah countered.
Adrian turned to look at her. Even through the mask, she could feel the intensity of his gaze. You remind me of someone. Sarah's heart stopped. Oh, someone I lost, Adrian said quietly. She saw through people too. She would have liked you, I think. Sarah forced herself to breathe normally. What happened to her? She died because I wasn't brave enough to save her. Adrian's voice cracked. I made choices that cost her everything, and now I pay the price every single day. For a moment, Sarah almost broke, almost tore off her mask and told him everything, almost forgave him. But then she remembered. He chose. He didn't trust her. He let Vivian plan her murder without warning her. We all make choices, Your Highness, Sarah said coldly. We live with the consequences. She walked away before he could respond, her heart pounding. This was going to be harder than she thought. But she had a mission. Expose Vivian, destroy Duke Malric, save Elena, and make Adrian understand exactly what he had lost. The game had only just begun. The web of deception. Playing the king's game. 3 weeks had passed since the veiled oracle arrived at court. In that short time, Sarah had become the most talked about person in the kingdom. The king consulted her on every major decision. The nobles both feared and admired her. And Duke Malric watched her with growing suspicion. Perfect. Sarah sat in the king's private council chamber, spreading maps and trade documents across the massive oak table. King Theodore looked healthier than he had in years. Her economic reforms were already showing results. Tax revenue was up, trade agreements were being renegotiated, and the treasury was slowly filling again. You're a miracle worker, Oracle, the king said, signing another document she had prepared. In 3 weeks, you've accomplished what my advisors couldn't do in 3 years. I simply see patterns others miss, Your Majesty, Sarah replied smoothly. She had perfected the art of sounding wise without being arrogant. The door opened. Adrian walked in, and Sarah's heart did that annoying flutter it always did when he appeared. He looked exhausted. Good. Let him suffer sleepless nights like she had. Father, we need to discuss the northern border, Adrian said, then noticed Sarah. Oracle. I didn't know you'd be here. The Oracle is always here, the king said cheerfully. She's become my right hand. What's this about the north? Adrian's jaw tightened. There have been reports of unusual troop movements near Duke Malric's fortress. The scouts say he's been fortifying his defenses. Sarah's mind raced. This was new information. Why would Malric need more soldiers? Perhaps the Duke fears an attack from the mountain clans, the king suggested. Or perhaps, Sarah said carefully, the Duke is preparing for something else entirely. Both men looked at her. Adrian's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Sarah stood and walked to the map on the wall. She pointed to Malric's northern territories. Duke Malric controls the iron mines, the mountain passes, and now he's building an army. Your Majesty, has the Duke requested additional funding from the Treasury recently? The king frowned. Yes, actually. He said it was for road repairs. Roads don't require soldiers, Sarah said quietly. Your Majesty, I recommend you conduct an audit of Duke Malric's spending. I believe you'll find interesting discrepancies. Adrian stepped closer to her, his voice low. You're accusing the king's cousin of treason? Sarah met his gaze through her mask. I'm accusing no one, Your Highness. I'm simply suggesting that numbers don't lie. People do. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Finally, the king sighed. Do the audit, Oracle. Quietly. If Malric is loyal, we'll find nothing. If he's not. The king's face hardened. Then we'll deal with him accordingly. Thank you, Your Majesty, Sarah bowed. I'll begin immediately. As she gathered her documents, Adrian caught her arm. His touch sent electricity through her body. She forced herself not to react. A word, Oracle, he said. It wasn't a request. The king nodded and left them alone. Sarah pulled her arm free and turned to face Adrian. You're playing a dangerous game, Adrian said. Malric is powerful. If you're wrong. I'm not wrong, Sarah interrupted. Your Highness, when did you stop trusting your instincts? You know something is wrong with Duke Malric. You've known for a long time. Adrian's face tightened. How could you possibly know that? Because I see how you look at him, Sarah said softly. Like you're waiting for him to strike. Like you're afraid of what he might do. Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then, so quietly she almost didn't hear, he has something of mine, something precious. As long as he has it, I have to be careful. Sarah's breath caught. Elena. He was talking about his sister. What if I told you, Sarah said slowly, that I could help you get it back? Adrian's head snapped up. What do you know about? I know that power comes from leverage, Your Highness, and leverage works both ways. Duke Malric has something you want. We need to find something he wants more. Who are you really? Adrian whispered, stepping closer. You arrive out of nowhere, you solve impossible problems, you see through everyone. Who sent you? Sarah smiled behind her mask. No one sent me, Your Highness. I came because this kingdom is worth saving. And so are the people in it. She walked past him, leaving Adrian standing alone in the council chamber, questions burning in his eyes, secrets in the shadows. That night, Sarah didn't sleep. She worked in her chambers, going through years of financial records. Duke Malric had been stealing from the kingdom for years, hiding it in false contracts, fake road projects, and inflated military expenses. But that wasn't all she found. There were payments to someone called VB, large payments made monthly for the past 6 months.
VB Vivian Blackphone.
Sarah's hands trembled as she read the records. Malric had been paying Vivian even before Adrian's engagement was announced. This conspiracy went deeper than she thought. A soft knock on her door made her jump. She quickly hid the documents and called out, "Enter." A servant girl slipped inside, looking terrified. "Oracle? I was told to bring you this." She held out a sealed letter. Sarah took it. The seal was unfamiliar, a black wolf's head. She waited until the girl left, then opened it. The message inside was simple. The oracle sees much, but does she see the danger she's in? Be careful whose secrets you uncover. Some truths are meant to stay buried. A friend, right? This was a threat. Sarah burned the letter in her fireplace and smiled coldly. Let them threaten her. She had died once already. She wasn't afraid anymore. The masked ball. 2 days later, the king announced a grand masked ball to celebrate the spring season. It was tradition. Everyone wore masks, identities were hidden, and for one night, nobles could pretend the social hierarchy didn't exist. Sarah wore a black and silver gown that matched her mask. She looked like a dark star. When she entered the ballroom, conversations stopped. People stared. The oracle makes quite an entrance, a familiar voice said. Vivian Blackthorn appeared beside her, wearing a blood-red dress and a golden mask. She smiled, but her eyes were cold. Tell me, do you ever remove that mask? Or is the face beneath too hideous to show? Sarah turned to face her enemy. This was the woman who had tried to kill her, who had manipulated Adrian, who was probably working with Duke Malric to destroy the kingdom. I wear this mask for the same reason you wear yours tonight, Lady Vivian, Sarah said smoothly. Sometimes the truth of who we are is too dangerous to reveal. Vivian's smile faltered. You speak in riddles, Oracle.
Doi.
I thought I was being quite clear.
Sera ligne de closer.
But perhaps you're right. Let me be more direct. I know about the payments, Vivian. The monthly gold from Duke Malric. What exactly is he paying you for? Vivian's face went white beneath her mask. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't, Sarah said pleasantly. Just like you don't know why the Duke is building an army, or why he's been smuggling weapons into the capital, or why he's been meeting with enemies of the crown in secret. You're insane, Vivian hissed. I'll tell the king you're spreading lies. Please do, Sarah interrupted. I have documents proving everything. The question is, will you still be standing free when the truth comes out? Or will you take the blame for everything Duke Malric has done? Vivian looked like she'd been slapped. You know nothing. I know you're a pawn, Vivian, and pawns are always sacrificed first. Sarah walked away, leaving Vivian trembling with rage. The music started, a waltz. Sarah stood at the edge of the ballroom, watching couples spin across the floor. She remembered dancing here with Adrian once, a lifetime ago. She had been so happy then, so naive. May I have this dance? Adrian's voice came from behind her. Sarah turned. He wore a simple black mask that covered only his eyes, but she would know him anywhere. Your Highness, where is your fiancé? Indisposed, Adrian said, offering his hand. Dance with me, Oracle. I want to understand you. Understanding me could be dangerous, Sarah warned. I'm willing to take that risk. Against her better judgment, Sarah placed her hand in his. The moment they touched, it felt like coming home. She had to remind herself to breathe. Adrian led her onto the dance floor. His hand settled on her waist, pulling her close. They moved together perfectly, as if they'd danced 1,000 times before. You knew about Vivian and Duke Malric, Adrian said quietly. How long have you known? Long enough, Sarah replied. Your Highness, why did you agree to marry her? What does Malric have over you? Adrian's hand tightened on her waist. I can't tell you that. Can't? Or won't? Both. His voice was strained. If I tell you, someone I love will die, so I stay silent. I play the obedient prince. I prepare to marry a woman I can't stand. And I hate myself every single day for it. Sarah's heart ached. She wanted to tell him she understood, that she knew about Elena, that she could help. But not yet. Not until she had proof. Not until she could guarantee Elena's safety. What if I told you, Sarah said carefully, that there might be another way, that you don't have to sacrifice yourself? Adrian stopped dancing. They stood in the middle of the ballroom while couples swirled around them. What are you saying? I'm saying that Duke Malric's power comes from secrets and fear. What if we took that power away? How? Trust me, Sarah said. Give me 2 weeks. Let me investigate. And at the end of it, you'll have your freedom. I promise. Adrian stared at her. Behind his mask, his eyes searched hers. Why would you help me? What do you get out of this? Maybe I believe the kingdom deserves better, Sarah said. Maybe I believe you deserve better. Or maybe, she hesitated. Maybe someone once told me that good people shouldn't have to suffer for other people's evil. Who told you that? Adrian whispered. Someone I lost, Sarah said, echoing his words from weeks ago. Someone who deserved better than what the world gave her. The music ended. Sarah stepped back and curtsied. Thank you for the dance, Your Highness. It was enlightening. She walked away before he could respond, her heart pounding. She had said too much, revealed too much, but she couldn't help it. Being close to him, touching him, feeling his warmth. It broke down all her careful walls. She had to be more careful. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. The poisoned truth. The next morning, Sarah was summoned to the king's chambers urgently. She arrived to find chaos. Servants rushed everywhere. The royal physician was shouting orders. What happened?
Sera demanded.
Adrian appeared, his face gray with fear. My father. Someone poisoned him. Last night at the ball, he drank wine and collapsed. The physician says he has maybe 2 days to live unless we find an antidote. Sarah's mind raced. This was Malric's move. With the king dead, Adrian would take the throne, and Malric could control him through Vivian and Elena. Who served the wine? Sarah asked. We don't know. It was a masked ball. Anyone could have done it. No, Sarah said firmly. Not anyone. This poison is rare, expensive, and requires knowledge of royal routines. This was planned. Who had access to the king's wine stores? Adrian's face hardened. The Duke of Malric. He gave father a cask of rare wine from the north as a gift. Father drank it last night. Then we have our answer, Sarah said. Your Highness, I need access to that wine cask, and I need you to arrest Duke Malric. Now. On what grounds? Adrian demanded. Suspicion? The Duke is the king's cousin. On grounds of attempted murder, Sarah said coldly. And if you want your father to live, you'll do it now before Malric has time to destroy the evidence. Adrian stared at her. Then he turned to his guards. Arrest Duke Malric. Hold him in the tower. No visitors. And someone bring me that wine cask immediately. As guards rushed to obey, Adrian pulled Sarah aside. If you're wrong about this. I'm not wrong, Sarah said. I'm never wrong, Your Highness. That's why you hired me. 2 hours later, Sarah stood in the royal laboratory with the physician and the wine cask. She carefully analyzed the wine using techniques Mother Elara had taught her. Nightshade, she announced, mixed with belladonna and silver dust. It's a northern poison, very rare. Only someone with connections to the mountain clans would have access to it. Duke Malric, Adrian said grimly. He controls the northern territories. Yes, but Your Highness, this poison has an antidote. We need white moonflower root, dragon's breath herb, and crushed pearl powder. If we prepare it correctly, your father will live. I'll send riders immediately, Adrian said. Where can we find these ingredients?
Sera hésita-t-elle.
She knew exactly where to find them. Mother Elara's cave. But revealing that would raise questions she wasn't ready to answer. There's a herbalist in the eastern mountains, Sarah said carefully. Send your fastest rider with this list. Tell her the oracle sent you. She'll understand. Adrian looked at her strangely. How do you know? I know many things, Your Highness, Sarah interrupted. That's why your father trusts me. Now go. We're running out of time. The Duke's confession. While they waited for the antidote, Adrian ordered Duke Malric brought to the throne room. Sarah insisted on being present. She hid in the shadows behind a pillar, watching. Malric looked confident despite being in chains. He smiled at Adrian like nothing was wrong. Really, nephew? Chains? This is how you treat family. You poisoned my father. Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. Prove it, Malric challenged. We have the wine cask. We have the poison analysis. Your name is all over this, uncle. Malric's smile faded slightly. Circumstantial. You have no real proof. I have all the proof I need, Adrian said. He held up documents, the financial records Sarah had discovered. You've been stealing from the kingdom for years. You've been paying Lady Vivian Blackthorne to manipulate me. And you've been holding my sister hostage to ensure my cooperation. Malric's face went white. How did you? The Oracle, Adrian said simply. She sees everything, including where you're keeping Princess Elena. This was a bluff. Sarah didn't actually know where Elena was hidden. But Malric didn't know that. You can't prove anything about the princess, Malric said. But his confidence was cracking. Can't I? Adrian leaned forward. Tell me, uncle, what do you think will happen when the kingdom learns you kidnapped the princess? That you tried to murder the king? That you've been planning a coup? A coup. Malric laughed, but it sounded desperate. You're insane. Am I? Adrian gestured to the guards. Bring in Lady Vivian. Vivian was dragged in, looking terrified. When she saw Malric, she burst into tears.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to do it. He forced me. He said he'd kill the princess if I didn't cooperate. Shut up, you fool, Malric roared. But it was too late. Vivian was talking, words spilling out in a desperate rush. He gave me the poison. He told me to slip it into the king's wine at the ball. I didn't want to, but he said if I didn't do it, he'd kill Princess Elena. She's in the northern fortress, in the underground cells beneath his castle. Please, your highness, I was trying to protect her.
Sora watched Adrian's face.
Rage, relief, and grief warred in his expression. Elena was alive, and now they knew where she was. You've lost, uncle, Adrian said quietly. Confess. Tell me everything. And maybe I'll let you live. Malric looked at Vivian with pure hatred. Then he looked at Adrian and laughed. A broken, bitter sound. You think you've won? You foolish boy. This was never about the crown. This was about survival. The kingdom is dying. The treasury is empty. The people are starving. And your weak father does nothing. I was trying to save us all. By murdering the king? Adrian said coldly.